All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Today, you know how we did Adam versus the Aesops? Or that should be up. Maybe if
Yep.
I actually edited the video and completed it. It will be out before this one, hopefully. Yeah. So I did that video, but that was a one-on-one gauntlet style. Today, we're going to be putting Team Juniper in the exact same scenario that Team Rwby found themselves in Volume
Where they
7.
all where they play all of them at the same time as a team.
Yes. And now it would be a 3v4. However, in this scenario, we're just going to throw in Oscar. Oscar is kind of like the fourth member of Team Juniper. I mean, he was bunking with them in actually Volume 7. He shared a room, I'm pretty sure, with John, Ren, and Nora. So, like, he's kind of just part of their team. You know? I don't know.
Yeah.
Kind of. Anyway.
Kind of.
Or we could throw Emerald in there, but I feel like Emerald just kind of does her own thing, you know?
Yeah.
Anyway. So Volume 7. What happens? Well, the Aesops fight Team Rwby. But this time, instead, they fight Team Juniper. So, going into the matchups, it would be John versus Harriet. It would be Ren and Nora versus Elm and Vine. And then it would be Oscar versus Marrow. And, alright. So, here's the thing. I think it's going to be very different from the original. Just because, two things. Team Rwby is, I would argue, a far more aggressive team, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like,
Whereas Team Juniper is a lot more passive.
yeah.
More strategy.
Yeah. Like, their fights would naturally, I feel, take longer just because Oscar, John, and even Ren, they're not as, one punch, kind of attitudes.
Yeah.
So, thing is, too, I was talking, we weren't discussing this too much prior, but we were yapping a little bit about just Rwby in general, as you do. And one thing I think we both find hard is Harriet versus John.
Yeah.
Like, Evan, how do you really feel about that?
It pretty much comes down to, is Harriet just gonna speed blitz him immediately or what?
Yeah.
It's all about what Harriet does, because John can't
Yeah.
really do anything about her speed.
Yeah, it just comes down to a question of, John can't really do anything, but, Harriet is also just, I feel like she's not strong enough to, put John down fast enough before he, aura exists, you know?
Before he just full heals himself.
Yeah, because we actually saw in Volume 7, he can just, recharge his aura, and, he goes from, half health to full health. And, let's say he only, he can only do that, once, maybe twice, if we're, he can only do that once or twice, right? That's still 2 times you have to take down a fighter. You know?
Yeah.
That's still really impressive. And
They're gonna beat this man several times.
yeah. And on top of that, Harriet's not that durable. Rwby managed to take her down in a couple of hits. Now, to be fair, I think Rwby with Crescent Rose hits harder than John. But John does have his Buster Sword, which is something no one ever talks about anymore, because, he doesn't really use it that much. But he has that. And I feel like that actually scales above Ruby's Crescent Rose. So if he manages to hit Harriet with that, she might be done for in like 1 or 2 hits, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Plus, he does have the gravity shield, which can literally deflect other opponents. And we know that's pretty strong because in Volume 8, John literally just walks in front of Cinder and just boops her away. And he does that multiple times, actually.
I forgot he just does that.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, if Harriet tries to run at him and he's able to get his shield up in time and just boops her, like, through a wall or something, I feel like he can, you know? Like,
yeah.
My gut is telling me Harriet wins, but my brain is telling me John is at least going to he's not going to go down without a fight, you know?
Yeah.
And then, then they have, I feel like this one's kind of easy, because this one is just, this one unironically might just kind of be a clown match. It's Marrow versus Oscar.
Which
And
I think just, the fight just doesn't happen because Marrow's just gonna like freeze Oscar in place and then nothing's gonna happen after that.
The question is, can Oscar activate his abilities?
That is true.
Because, like, Oscar just has the shield. You know?
Does Oscar's shield block Marrow's semblance?
Well, no, what I mean is, like, okay, let's say Marrow hits Oscar and then Oscar puts up the shield. How does Marrow get through the shield?
So essentially it just becomes a no one wins this fight kind of situation.
Pretty much, yeah. Actually, now that I think about it, wouldn't John also be in the room? Because, like, Volume 7, it starts with Rwby the fight starts with Rwby running away and Harriet chases after her. And then the other kind of fights kind of break out.
Yeah.
So John would not do that in character. So would it then become like Harriet and Marrow versus Oscar and John? And then kind of the same thing happens? Where,
probably.
I don't know. The Aesops are very individualistic, I guess, maybe, if that's the right word. As in, like, they don't fight with each other. They do, technically, but they're not... We even hear it in the show. Their teamwork is not good, like, at all.
Like, they're very solo-based fighters.
Yeah. And I don't know.
And we learned that when... What was it? Yang and Weiss versus Elm?
No, it was Yang and Blake versus Elm and Vine.
Yeah, and like Vine and Elm really do anything as a team.
Yeah,
does not help that their semblances aren't really that good.
Yeah, like Elm's semblance,
especially Elm's.
I'm sorry, is actually maybe. I guess this might be the easiest, because basically what happens is whoever wins this fight, which is Ren and Nora versus Elm and Vine, basically whoever wins this one can basically go in and help the other two with whatever they're doing. Because Oscar and Marrow is literally just a stall match, which I find kind of hilarious. Unless Oscar just like pulls out the laser beam, but like,
I don't think he can do that anymore.
Well, no, it's Volume 7 Oscar.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, that's pre-laser beam.
Yeah. So he still has the laser beam. And I don't know, man. That might be doing Marrow dirty, though. Because that beam is vaporizing Marrow. It vaporized Final Form. It vaporized, like, supercharged Hazel.
That's probably vaporizing Marrow before it even reaches Marrow. He's probably just going to be vaporized before it hits him.
Yeah, like, bro, if Oscar pulls that out against Marrow,
it might be a little overkill.
Like, honestly, I think everyone else just might die. Like,
Oscar might just kill all of the Aesops plus Team Juniper.
Yeah.
In the laser.
Yeah.
So I don't think he would do that.
Yeah. So I think that's just like a stall match. Maybe you can argue that, oh, there's like a more control, but that's irrelevant, right? So the main fight that's probably going to decide everything is Elm and Vine
And
versus,
Vine versus
yeah.
Red Nora.
And I actually think that, honestly, I think we should have saw Nora versus Elm. I really wanted to see that matchup when the Aesops turned in the bad guys, and we never got to see it, and I'm kind of disappointed that we did. And
I mean, not that Elm would beat Nora, because I'm pretty sure Nora will beat her no matter what.
I think so too. I think Elm just overall is physically stronger. Like, she hits harder and she's more durable. But Nora has the ability to supercharge herself.
And also the ability to move while she's using her semblance.
That is also true. Because Elm does really rely on
Her semblance.
Yeah, and she relies it on getting good footing in order to hit those heavy attacks, which is actually something that Ren most likely would know about, because we do see that Ren did train with Elm for a little bit, and he at least should be able to figure that out, considering, hey, he knows, like, he's trained with her to a substantial amount, right?
Right.
And I don't think Vine. I think Vine versus Ren isn't necessarily a great matchup for Ren, I would say. Because Ren's semblance is kind of useless against humans until it evolves. So there's that. Plus,
it wouldn't have evolved at this time.
Yeah. Plus, Ren also, like, with Blake, they tricked Elm into holding explosives. That's how they got him off of his high ground. Ren would have to physically get up to the high ground, which he can do because he does have grappling hooks. But
but like Vine can also just like grab him while he's doing that.
Yeah. So I think it would have to be almost like Nora would have to multitask, as in she'd have to shoot grenades at Vine to get him off high ground and fight Elm. And the question is, would Ren know and understand enough to peel back and help Nora multitask while simultaneously avoiding Vine? And I don't know. Although then again, Ren does also, in character, just shoot a crazy ton of bullets. So there is a chance that, like, Ren might just spray and pray at Vine, which might keep him distracted long enough for Nora to take out Elm. Because Elm is a stationary fighter. She does not have good positioning. And on top of that, Nora is just naturally destructive, meaning that if Nora destroys the ground around Elm, most likely she's just going to, lose. Then Elm literally loses her one advantage,
And then it's pretty clear and cut victory.
Yeah. And then, so I think honestly, Ren and Nora can take out Vine and Elm.
Yeah.
I think it would be,
because Ren's probably just gonna shoot at Vine a whole bunch.
Yeah. I do think, though, it will be harder for them to do than in the original. Like, I think Ren and Nora will have a harder time against Vine and Elm than Yang and Blake did. But I think they'll still win,
Yeah.
And then I guess it would kind of turn into, like, if they win, then basically, I don't know, you could have Ren go help John, or Nora go help, and Nora help Oscar, and then boom, 2v1, it kind of turns bad. Also, we were talking about how they're slower paced fighters initially, and I don't know if you remember this, but Maria and Pietro, Penny's dad, were actually broke into Ironwood's office, which is where the fight was taking place, right after Team Rwby defeated the Aesops. So there is unironically that win condition where they just stall for long enough, and then Maria comes. You know?
Yeah.
And here's the I know this sounds really dumb, but Maria's actually kind of like, she's even strong in her old age. Like, she was boxing with Neo. You know?
Yeah, it's true.
Like, she was fighting Neo. And I think
Yeah.
Neo also clowned on Team Juniper. So
Neo played like them, like they were like they were a circus.
yeah.
Like it was crazy.
Yeah. And then Maria comes in and fights her one-on-one and does relatively well against her, so there's literally a chance that
And especially forces Neo to retreat.
yeah. And then she comes in and just wins the whole thing. To be fair though, that's not really genuous of this match. It just is a possibility if we're going like it's literally the same scenario, just Team Juniper instead of Team Rwby, you know? So there is that. But yeah. And I don't know, I guess maybe we should try to determine a winner without being like, oh, since Nora and Ren win, that means the other two matchups automatically win. I think okay, so let's actually decide a winner.
Yeah.
I don't think Oscar can beat Marrow.
I don't think so either.
Because I think like Marrow tells him to stay, he puts up his shield, right? And then it's a stall war. But okay, Marrow has to stand still to use stay, and Oscar has to and Oscar gets hit by that, uses his shield, so then he stands still as well. So it becomes a stalling war.
And it just becomes them standing and looking at each other.
Yeah, but at least Marrow, I don't think Marrow can like do that. Like, he can still move around slightly when he's using stay, whereas Oscar gets hit by it, he can't move at all, you know? And so I think just naturally, Marrow's eventually gonna catch Oscar lacking, for a better term, and I think he's just gonna win. And I'm sorry, I know me and Summer disagree on this. I think John can take Harriet. I'm sorry. Like, I think not only does John have those shield grenades, which can basically turn it into a hallway matchup. Like, John can box her in, so her main thing, which is running around blitzing her opponent, guess what?
Won't work.
It won't work if John puts her in a light shield box. And if she tries to break out, guess what? She's gonna have to like pause and like put extra power into her machine to break those out. And guess what? Then John is gonna
like two-shot her.
Yeah. Because John with the greatsword is hitting really hard. And I know this is a weird comparison, but John with his greatsword did more damage to the Knuckle than Rwby did with Crescent Rose.
Yeah.
And keep in mind, Rwby was stronger than John at the time, and Ruby's still stronger than John in Volume 7, and even now. But it's still safe to say that John using the Buster Sword is going to hit like a truck, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And if we are going into just strong attacks, Ren does still have his knife, his father's knife, which did also, like, completely one-shot the Knuckle or, like, decapitate it. So there is that.
How strong is that knife?
I don't know. That knife is weird, because, like, the knife unironically did more damage than any of the other weapons, so I don't know if it was, like, some super nano sharp carbon fiber, whatever. But, yeah, it was... He does still have that option. I wish he used the knife. I really wish he did, but whatever. That is an option, though. That is something that exists, you know? It's not likely, but it's a scenario, and that's the thing. Like, I think it's harder for Team Juniper to beat the Aesops, but I think they still win, you know?
Yeah.
Like, let's say Team Rwby, it was like an 8 out of 10 difficulty.
Yep.
This was a 9 out of 10 difficulty. Like, I still think they pull it off, but they don't pull it off as well, you know?
Although I think that if John beats Harriet, what's stopping John from just, like, smacking Marrow.
See, that's true as well. But
Because if they're in the same room, which most likely they will be,
yeah, then
what
John is going to
stopping
be
John
able
from
to
just like smacking Marrow and helping Oscar.
Yeah. Yeah. Plus, if we do go into that effect, there is a chance that
But it becomes a 4v2 instead of
Yeah.
a 2v instead of a 2v2.
yeah. And then I guess the thing is too, if John I think John is probably going to take the longest, but if John does get really lucky and like hits Harriet really well, the minute John gets active, the minute
It's over.
yeah, like I know this sounds really stupid because it's John of all characters, but the minute John boosts the semblance of Nora, that's
It's
game.
over.
Like that's literally
like
game.
that. Like the fight's over at that
Yeah.
point. Might
Like-
as well give up.
Like that's game, guys. I don't think you understand. John's amps are crazy strong. Like, to put into perspective, Weiss went in Volume 5, Weiss went from getting beaten by Vernal to stalling Hazel for a small period of time. That is a massive jump, considering Hazel is on the same level as Crow. So, Weiss went from Vernal, the same level as Vernal, to Crow.
Like Crow level.
Like, that is a massive increase. And then combine the fact with Nora, when she gets amped, if she gets amped for long enough, she's her own monster. So, if John is able to make contact with Nora, and keep in mind, that also boosts Nora's semblance, which most likely means it would boost her efficiency. Meaning that, hey, you know how Nora needs to typically absorb a decent amount of electricity and, like, sit there for a little bit? Well, now she doesn't need to because John would boost the effectiveness of her semblance.
Yeah.
So, like, it's such a weird thing to say, but if John gets his hands on Nora, that's GG. Like, the game's over, you know?
At that point, you might as well just throw in the towel and retire.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, I think Team Juniper is... They're different enough where Team Rwby, where you can ask these scenarios, and it does play out significantly differently. But at the end of the day, they are still all relative, you know?
Yeah.
And it's just kind of the thing where they're close enough where you compare them and you have these matchups like that. And we'll actually be breaking down Team Rwby versus Team Juniper soon. But that's for a later day. Yeah. But it's just interesting to break down. And I think that they have enough win conditions where I can confidently say that I think Team Juniper takes this more often than the Aesops do. There obviously are some win conditions that the Aesops have, you know, like every fight, you know?
Yep.
But I think for the most part, I think I gotta put my money on Juniper. I think they win this most of the time.
Yeah. I'd say they win this most of the time.
Yeah. Also, I don't know if I brought this. No, I didn't. But as I was bringing up for John that he can heal himself from half the full HP, he can also do that for his teammates. Which, if you thought Nora was bad, now imagine Nora, but she has 150% health. Like, imagine that.
Plus the buff to her semblance.
Yeah, plus the damage boost. Plus the more efficient semblance, which means less electricity, which means less weight and startup time for her attacks. Like, bro, that's GG's. I'm sorry to say.
John is the win condition for his team.
Yeah. Yeah. Or Oscar just laser beams them and then they all die. But
then everyone dies except for Oscar.
Yep.
So he probably would
hey,
never
I mean
do
that's
that.
still technically a Team Juniper win. You know, it is.
Yeah, with only one remaining member alive.
Oh, a dub is a dub. Game is no.
Okay.
A dub is a dub. I'm just saying. Anyway, yeah. Goodbye, everyone.